Live. I am Tulio Sergusa, broadcasting from Southern California. Today is Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. I'm joined today by Conrad de Cruz, who's joining me from Toronto, Canada, who's co-hosting today, covering for Ram Ganesan. Hi, good morning.
Morning, Tulio.
Actually, it's afternoon there in Toronto. Good
It
afternoon.
is. It's tipped over.
And we have Sam Akey, who's with Avangrid, who's the manager of renewable training and innovation, who's joining us from Portland. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Good morning. That's Sasha in the background.
All right, excellent. Hi, Sasha. Very good. Maybe we'll hear Sasha purring. Is it a cat? I can't tell because
No, it's a German Shepherd.
Oh, that wouldn't purr. Nice. I grew up with German Shepherds. Love them. So, Sam, let's get to know you a little bit. We're talking about extended reality today. It's an interesting conversation. But before we go into the topic and dig into it, let's get to know you a little bit. Sam, if you don't mind, please introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, thank you. So my name's Sam Akey. I am the manager of renewable energy and innovation training at Avangrid. I've been in this job for about 5 years. Self-proclaimed nerd. Luckily, I dig two things: education and technology. So those two things now, actually, that gap, especially with our generation kind of coming into play. I have teenagers that definitely have focused me on that world, is that that gap is closing very quickly, and that training now is not the same as it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago or even just 2 years ago. That world is changing just as fast as technology is. And I work for Avangrid. So Avangrid's a large utility that we own several large utilities on the East Coast. And we also have a renewable sector that we have third largest in the country. We're in 26 different states. We service close to 2 million customers, and give them the ability to turn their lights on. So yeah, and utilities kind of have always been sort of slow when it comes to education. So that's why it's just been a huge thing with this innovation project we're doing, to kind of catch all of that up. So yeah, totally excited to be here and talk about this kind of stuff. I feel like the more that we can sort of educate people and other potential users of this technology, it's better for all of us, because the more that we use it, the more that's invested, and it's that free hand, in the technology world, is the more people that want it and they'll invest in it, the better that technology will get. And that's exactly what's happened with things like extended reality. So
nice. So let's go right into the topic today. Thanks for the introduction and for a little bit about Avangrid as well. The topic you chose today was leveraging AR/VR to accelerate field worker qualifications and capabilities. And what we're really talking about today is how today's learners seek autonomy and accelerated results, how extended reality leverages auditory and visual channels in a way traditional methods can't replicate. That's a mouthful, I know.
It
but
is.
Essentially, you're using extended reality as a way to educate and to qualify field workers, as I understand it. Please tell us a bit more about what made you choose this topic and why this is relevant in terms of what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the first word that comes to mind is the autonomy part. So that is a characteristic that we have seen over and over, and we're becoming more aware of in the training industry, is that people really kind of want to be in charge of their own way of learning something. And we've definitely seen that offers the quickest way and the best way for them to retain it. So I'll give you an example. Like, for instance, my trunk broke the other day, and was I going to go and like read this giant book on fundamentals of trunks and how they work and this, or do I just go to YouTube, search broken trunk on a Toyota Corolla, and in 2 seconds I was able to pull up something that I watched a video of somebody doing it, and I did it. So that's kind of the autonomy I'm talking about, is the choice of how they will learn the best, whether that's reading, video, or ideally putting them like in something immersive where they get to actually practice doing it.
So the
Sam, do
days
you
of
have
Chilton books is over, huh?
What's that?
Remember the big Chilton auto books?
Oh, I remember those. Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely moving away from that.
safely so? Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Sorry,
But
Chilton. Go ahead,
yeah,
Conrad.
but Sam, do you have any data on what's really some of the areas for immersive? Because like you said, if I have a flat tire, I'm not gonna look up my manual of how do I really fix the flat. I'm just gonna go to YouTube and I'm gonna fix it, right? So what kind of topics do you think would be best suited in your experience for doing this innovations pilot for AvantGrid? What kind of topics do you think would be more suited for immersive?
I'm so glad you asked that, because that is the $1 million question of what do you do? And I think a lot of companies made this mistake when they invested in VR early, and they're like, yeah, we want to show somebody how to, whatever, fix a door. Okay, so they make this big, great VR module how to fix a door, but then you realize you're like, well, I could have probably showed you how to do that in person, and it would have taken the same amount of time, and I wouldn't have had to invest this much money.
Exactly.
So what you have to do is pick something that you cannot replicate easily. So in other words, like in our industry, it's very easy. So, we have, our linemen and our technicians work in dangerous conditions every day.
Mhm.
So we can't just say, all right, guys, it's time to practice high voltage switching. It's dangerous. You just don't do that. And plus, it's not good to turn people's power on and off, right?
Mhm.
People
Yeah.
don't like that.
And no, nobody likes that.
So,
Not here when it's -2 degrees Fahrenheit.
right,
No.
exactly. So but the beautiful thing about VR is that you make that world. So you can make it like you go in and you can practice actually like switching. You can practice putting on high voltage switching gear and personal protective equipment and all of that and replicate that process. Nothing has ever existed like that before. So, and we're talking about that auditory and visual learning, which is at the top of the knowledge transfer pyramid. So you're talking 90% of experience learning is retained, down to 10% if you put them in a classroom.
True.
Wow.
So it's
a
big gap.
simulation inside the simulation, right?
Right. Yeah. But like I said, you can't put them in VR for just anything. You really have to pick specific things that, that make sense. Like for us, it's something like, safety, a dangerous situation, or just something that's, we're unable to have them practice easily.
Got it. So would you say, Sam, for the listeners that are tuning in today, manufacturing, aviation, and medical device healthcare have been one of the forefront runners to really implement this immersive learning, right? But what about companies that do not have, not in that category? Let's say finance, right? Finance, for example. Would you say that there are some use cases in those areas for finance that folks can probably look into?
That's a tough one. I've never thought about finance.
Because everybody wants to jump into the bandwagon, right? You and I know that. Everybody wants to do something in either VR, AR, or MR, right? These are the three vehicles that everybody wants to kind of jump onto. But should everybody jump onto it? And what kind of use cases, if any, do you see for folks like in finance or insurance?
So,
I mean, I could see
go ahead.
potentially, teaching someone how to trade, right? For a lot of these applications that are encouraging home trading or investment. I could see potentially someone using that as a platform to teach what to look for. It's an immersive way instead of just reading about it. But I don't know if that's an industry where this can really take off. And maybe we haven't thought about the applications. But I'm curious
Yeah.
to learn about, in the education field, how has like COVID, for example, impacted the investments in this kind of technology? And is there a future of having virtual classrooms using these kinds of technologies that could potentially eliminate the need to have even brick and mortar facilities? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I definitely think that COVID did not slow us down. That's for sure. When it came to kind of virtual, uh, simulations and things like that, it definitely sped up that need and want to have that option. And we weren't particularly ready. Unfortunately, the AR VR, it's the development's kind of slow because it's a process. The developers make the models, then we look at it, make sure everything kind of is tied together. I feel like though in the future we would be better prepared for that. Yeah, so I feel like it's definitely something though that, like Conrad, I'm sure can say. I mean, now they're talking about modules that a bunch of technicians could get in the same module and
Yeah.
work on the same thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like, I can't wait to try something like that.
Wow.
And I know
True.
it's out there. I've seen it.
True.
I've seen like videos of it and stuff.
Yeah, and to your point, a lot of the industry that you're in, Sam, which is the utilities industry, the energy utilities industry, they're slow adopters to technology. And Avangrid, I've been following you guys, and I know that you've taken that leap of faith last year and done that innovations pilot that you're leading, Sam. How has it been convincing some of your management team who really, may or may not have supported you? Because I know that utilities by itself, they're not very fast, and you just mentioned that they're not fast adopters to technology.
Nope. It's hard sometimes. I think that just VR. I feel people still think that the jury is out on VR, and I mean, technically, I think it is, right? It's
Yes.
not solid proven. You know what I mean? I've seen it work. I've only because I'm in it almost every day, so it's easier for me to make the connection. Trying to explain that to stakeholders when they see the price tag of how
Yes.
much it is to invest in.
Shocker. Yes.
Shocker, it is. But hey, I mean, it is. You're talking, even just 4 or 5 years ago when it sort of just came on the scene. Valve
Yeah.
made their headset.
Yeah.
The thing was
Yep.
like $1,400
Yeah.
for just the equipment. Now at least you can get the self-contained headsets for $400.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
the technology's better. So that's been a
But
big
is
thing.
that the biggest expense, the hardware, or is it actually designing the simulation, for example?
It's
right?
the design.
Great
I'm sure
question,
Conrad
Julio.
will tell you
Right?
that,
Great
yeah.
question. That's a great
And-
question.
And
It
also, is it also a challenge? Because unlike most software where you have a UX or UI or design team doing their work, and then you have the developers coding it, is it safe to assume that with VR, it's slightly different? You have to really work closely hand in hand, both design and development, to materialize these ideas. Is there a gap still in terms of how most organizations work in that fashion, that sort of separated fashion of developing these kinds of things that needs to change in order to enhance our ability to embrace VR? What are your thoughts on that based on your own experience at Avangrid?
I think it's all about strategy. I think that, my strategy was to, just kind of get the investment first and make the investment in the digital assets. So when we built the assets, we made sure that they would be leveraged over and over. You know what I mean? Like when we built a cabinet, we knew that cabinet could be used over and over and over again. We just built a substation model. So, but we built it so that it could be used by both our utility and our renewables business. So, you don't want to make things that are one-offs. That's where you're definitely going to get you're going to get axed. Your budget's going to get cut because, it just doesn't make any sense. You've got to make things that you're going to use over and over so that you're not focusing on build a whole new model every single time you want to change it. You just want to build interactions because it's faster. You're still able to give the learner a little bit of, some change it up for them, some choices. And that's really the strategy that we're following.
Perfect. That's great. So it's across your networks and across your renewables for both of the major lines of businesses that Avangrid has. But that's great. And you hit the nail on the head, Sam. It has to be modular in terms of the interactions that you can put across for the various skills that you're looking to get immersed in this kind of technology. And that's fantastic. But one question, and you don't blame me for this, but you knew this was coming. What do you see more immersive when it comes to AR or VR or MR? What in your opinion is the more immersive part of it?
I love AR. I really, really like AR. I don't like the price tag of the headsets. So the best AR out there right now, I feel like, is that Microsoft HoloLens 2.
Oh yeah. There we go. There she is.
Right? $3,500.
Looks like ski goggles. Kind of cool design.
Oh, it's super cool. Now, what you can do with this thing is, and the cool part about the augmented, so when you got augmented, I'm out of focus here. Okay. When you have augmented, you're kind of in both. So you're kind of in it's like holograms, basically. So you're able to overlay things like on equipment or things like that. And the really nice part about that is that you can call people within the headset. So if I'm a technician and I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen this before, I really need some help. Boom, you hit the headset and you call back to your office and you get one of the senior techs and he can see what you're seeing. And he can even load things into your headset and overlay like a diagram or something like that. So when it comes to something like that, augmented reality stands out by itself. You know what I mean?
And you've actually addressed one of the disadvantages that the industry report last year put out in terms of two areas. One is flexibility and state of mind. You just addressed that to say if the learner or the user is caught in a mix, they could just ask for help, which some of the other personas or other mediums do not do. So that's great, Sam. So that's why you choose AR.
For specific things, again, and that's that flexibility. You know what I mean? So so we'll use the fixing the trunk thing. So if I was like, all right, I need to go fix my trunk, I watched the video, so I'm going to go do it now. I have two choices. I either go in virtual reality, do all that, and go through this simulation, or I quickly put on my headset and call Conrad and say, hey, Conrad, this is what I'm looking at, man. What do I do? I know you've done this before. So in that situation, I would use AR. Now I got to go do a high voltage switching event, and you're not going to be able to help me. You know what I mean? Like I'm on my own when I actually have to do that. That's when I would want to go through a simulation first because there's risk. I would want to go first where I'm not going to get hurt. There's no chance of me getting hurt or damaging equipment. Then I go and try and do it. So those are the two scenarios.
I gotta admit, guys, I had like this ding, 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 ding noise going off in my head just as you were talking, because we live in the do-it-yourself era, right? And self-service is the best service. So what I'm seeing is there a possibility that some companies could potentially create an environment where you can get access to support for all kinds of things. You want to change the oil in your car. You want to fix a socket in your house. So you want to put up, something on the wall. You want to put up a TV, and literally someone's in there walking you through what to do next, instead of actually calling someone to come to the house to do the service. You do it yourself, and it's a shared environment, shared resource environment or shared services environment, right? Which is was something big in the 80s and 90s internally to a lot of companies. They learned how to share capacity without having to build multiple kingdoms within an organization. So is there a potential that we're at the early stages of a future where I can do stuff myself? I just call an expert on my AR device and just have them walk me through whatever I need to help with. Is that where it's going?
I definitely think, I mean, you hit it on the head. If you look at all the research, that's why in training it's called just in time, because I need this information just in time when I need it. I don't want to have to do a bunch of research. I don't want to have to do, you know what I mean? Give me the YouTube, you know what I mean? Give me like, that's that generation. That's the workforce transition that's coming in. They're all born in the internet age. I wasn't, you guys may have not been. So I know what it's like to have to go look at an encyclopedia. It's a long time ago, but I remember.
We all
now
do.
they don't know that.
Yeah.
When they were 4, they were using mom's cell phone to play a game or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, yes, I think that from here forward, as this technology grows and the capabilities grow, you're going to see more investment like Oculus has done and like Microsoft has done. And that headset, this HoloLens headset, integrates with Teams, with Outlook, and that's the great thing about Microsoft, man, is when they implement something, it works with all their stuff. You know what I mean? So I could make a Teams call on my headset and like do a presentation of what I'm looking at to a bunch of technicians, something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of potential.
So in, to call it just in time, which is, a very commonly used term in the industry. So I would say AR is more JIT, and you have VR, which is more safe haven to practice before you can't get it wrong anymore, right? Would you
Correct.
say that, Sam?
I would say that. Yep.
Okay.
And I would say that VR has more potential for learner feedback because of the tracking. Like, so for instance, we're implementing something with the eye tracking so that if a person, say you got this giant cabinet with a bunch of just wires, it's spaghetti,
Mhm.
and we put them through a simulation. Afterward, we could say, hey, just to let you know, man, like you were looking in the wrong part of the cabinet 90% of the time. It was over here and you were looking up here most of the time.
Correct.
So that's a really big,
Huge
place where we know that we can intervene.
Yeah.
It's about being proactive,
Yeah.
with someone's learning information,
Yeah.
instead of reactive. When by the time we realize there's a training issue, they've hurt themselves or somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
So Sam, in terms of the implementation now that you guys are going to be focusing on for the augmented reality, virtual reality for Avangrid, what are some of the, if I'm an engineer and I want to join you guys, what can I look forward to coming on board and experiencing, which maybe your competitor does not offer me?
Sure. So what I would say is, what we're going to be focusing on is detail. The more detailed I think these simulations are, and the more realistic they are, I feel like the more engagement we'll get. So we don't want to make it like, it's some kind of a, you go into this thing and you're like, wait a minute, this is all wrong. You know what I mean? Like this isn't like, wires don't look like that. The switch doesn't work like this. So for us, we want to make that experience real. So we
Realistic.
want
Yep.
the things to look real. We want, the equipment to be familiar. So we keep adding that kind of detail. Like the one that we just finished, we actually have a one-line diagram. So a big thing for us teaching technicians and engineers is how to read schematics. That's difficult. At least it was, it was something difficult for me. Taking something two-dimensional and making it three-dimensional in your mind. VR does that and makes that connection for you instantly. Whereas before you had to, and it's like math. Some people it's really easy. It's like Beethoven and music. But some people find it very difficult to do that. So VR does that for you because it says, here's two-dimensional, here's three-dimensional right in front of you. Boom, you make that connection.
Interesting. Sam, I want to go back to something you said earlier about you guys have created, for example, a cabinet that could be replicated, reused. So you have standardized certain things. I kept thinking about how some of the auto manufacturers who have multiple brands have done similar things in order to reduce cost and
Hmm.
they could get it very efficient and also improve the speed of production. I'm wondering, just the same way open source contributed to increasing the speed on how things got developed on the software side, right? By sharing, by contributing, you don't have to build everything from scratch, right? So, are people contributing similarly in this environment to open source environment where you can reuse some of these
Well,
assets so that the industry itself can speed up? Or what are your thoughts on that? What's happening there?
well, so there are some like there's on places you can go online like Turbo Squid and some different places that offer, like you said, like just models that are already built. A lot of that's hard to use for VR and AR because the detail is like good. They make some of this stuff it's like making something from CAD drawings. So if you make something from CAD drawings in VR, or I mean in a 3D model, normally it's to duplicate it, in like a 3D printer. For VR and AR, you're just looking for the person to look at it. So I guess the question, or the answer to your question is, there's nothing right now that people are sharing that I know of, just because it's so expensive. I don't think people are willing to share it yet. I hope so. I hope someday
Yeah,
they will.
I mean, that's what happened with software too, right? It was very expensive, but I'm curious because if it follows the same evolution, then you'll probably see the cost of
Oh
production
yeah.
come down, right?
Yeah.
We would be willing to have that conversation. And I've always been one to say, look, I mean, I understand things are proprietary and we're not looking to help our competition, but there are certain things I think that we could all benefit from.
Right.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think, you know what I mean? And I think that something like you just mentioned, maybe we all agree on, hey, look, let's just make something that we all agree on. This is a transformer that we know looks good. It's an industry standard. We all agree on it. Let's just all
Let's
get
just
together and pay for one. Who everybody benefits.
Right. Right.
Is it going to hurt? Is it going to really hurt like our bottom line? Probably not.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
that's the stuff that's not necessarily IP that are repeatable,
Yeah.
certainly. Well, hopefully they'll go in that direction, right? Conrad, you
Indeed.
got some.
Yeah.
We're coming up on wrap up. I know you got some additional good questions to ask.
Yeah, I could keep us here till the cows come home, but one last one. What's the benchmark, Sam? What's the benchmark that you guys are setting yourself up for in this year?
So yeah, benchmark, that's tough. Like there is none right now, really. But so the benchmark I would like to create is, like I said, the strategy. Build the models as a whole, and in the mind that don't focus on the task so much. I feel like when you focus on the task, it really it targets a very small group of people. When you focus on the environment, I feel like you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. So if you focus on a substation rather than saying, I want to show somebody how to do an oil sample, you are going to get a lot more for a lot more of your learners, whether they're new or experienced.
Got it. Got it. That's good.
Awesome. Well, it's been great to have you, Sam. There's so much to discuss on the evolution of extended reality. It's obviously an infancy stage industry that's been around for some time, but clearly there's huge potential and opportunity. Let's hope those costs of hardwares come down so that more people can play in it and innovate. I'd love to be able to have a service where I can call in for help for anything and do it myself because I'm pretty handy, but I don't always know how to do everything. So hopefully someone listening is like, hey, that's a good business opportunity. Let's Uberize our augmented reality.
I might just have to jump on that real quick.
Yeah.
Just from the way you heard it first. Anyway, it's been great to have you with us, Sam. We'll have to stay in touch and see how things progress and move along
Definitely.
with you and the company. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for joining us today. Come back at noon Pacific. We're going to have another Dojo Live at noon Pacific today, and we have one more tomorrow at noon Pacific on Thursday. That's a total of 4 shows this week. And of course, Monday, if you've missed any of them, Monday at noon, we will have the recap show where we recap all 4 shows in 10 minutes. Imagine that. So thanks for joining us. And until later today, stay safe. Round 2 of Dojo Live today. This is Tulio Sergusa. I'm broadcasting from Southern California. Today is Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. Welcome back. I am joined by Carlos Ponce in Cuernavaca, Mexico, and Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico.
Hey.
And of course, we do this for our guests, so we don't really matter. What matters is our guest. I'm just kidding, but it's great to have Rachel Yucky with us with Real Inc., who's joining us to talk about something.
Yucky.
Yes.
I'm going to call out of it because I know she's prudent enough not to.
So try saying red leather, yellow leather very fast over and over. Thanks for joining us today, Rachel. We're going to talk about something really important, the role of transparency in a growing company. That's a big topic. Before we go in and dissect that and get into it and talk about it, let's get to know you a little bit. If you could please introduce yourself to the audience, tell us about you, and then we'll talk about your company as well. But please introduce yourself. Thanks, Rachel.
Great. Thanks, guys, so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. My name is Rachel Yaki. I'm the VP of Experience at Real Inc. I am physically located in Indianapolis, Indiana. My career started pretty traditionally. I got an internship right out of college. I started working at CBRE, which is a commercial real estate firm. Cut my teeth there, was groomed by amazing mentors into a professional, spent 9 years there. Ultimately made the decision to make a big jump to tech. So I went from an existing well-oiled machine of an industry to something that was completely opposite and different. So jumped to the tech world and worked at Mobi Wireless Management, which has since been acquired by Tango, and was helping IT teams manage mobile devices. And super fun, some fulfilling work, learned a lot of great lessons, learned tech, but ultimately my heart has always been in real estate. So Real Inc., the company that I am with, took their first round of funding back in 2016. They got some press. I remember the moment of sitting and reading the email and seeing that they got press and looking into it. Reached out to the CEO and said, I want to do this. I want to be on this team with you. And the rest is history. So marrying tech with real estate in my space has been just a career step of my life. I'm having the time of my life right now. I've been here for 4.5 years. And I always say that the time that you spend in tech, there's a multiplier effect, like dog years to human years. So it's been 4 years. I don't know. It's like probably 8 or 12 with the amount of times we've changed and grown. Just how fast
I suddenly feel very ancient.
So what are you then in dog years, Tulio? Like 100?
I don't know. This September will mark 31 years. So I don't know what that is in dog years. I guess I'm in my grave by now. In dog years.
Think about how amazing you look for that age.
That is definitely true. I mean, I was talking to someone yesterday about the evolution of tech, how far we've come. It's pretty amazing to have lived it. So everybody's. So is it? So you can agricultural tech. It's agri-tech, health tech. Is it real tech? Is that appropriate? Is that the industry now? It's called real tech, or is it real tech, or is it a different name for the real estate tech industry?
Real estate tech.
Real estate tech. Okay, cool. They didn't abbreviate that one. All right. So let's talk about, well, you introduced your company a little bit. What is it that you guys actually do? Tell us a little bit about Real Inc.
Yeah. So we are, at its simplest form, a virtual touring software. We focus primarily right now in the multifamily industry. So that means apartment properties managers and their leasing teams are using our application to make pre-recorded videos to share with their prospects and with their residents. And then they also use our technology for live video virtual touring as well. So we had a good foothold in the market pre-COVID, a lot of value and ROI that we were delivering for our teams. But when COVID hit and everything shut down, it forced the hand of the multifamily industry to figure out how to pivot really quickly. So we had an incredible year last year, have exploded. I've seen 11,000% growth of usage of our platform last year. And it's just been a true honor to serve the industry and be a help in a time of crisis. So primarily we focus on multifamily. We do student, senior living, corporate housing as well. lots of dreams and ambitions for growth into other industries in the future as well.
Yeah, it's amazing how some industries go into crisis and others just exponentially grow. Let's go right into the topic today. Kim, please introduce the topic. Let's dig in because I'm looking forward to having this chat.
Sure, will do. Thank you, Tulio, and thank you for being here, Rachel. So the topic you chose today is the role of transparency in a growing company with clients, users, and ourselves. So it's a triangle there. You specifically want to talk about how to be transparent with clients, users, and ourselves, that triangle, by being real, being responsive, and building purposeful relationships. So I think my first question for you is, let's just talk about transparency. What does transparency mean in this context? And why did you choose to talk about this today?
Yeah, so transparency is near and dear to my heart, possibly because I came from corporate America as a number on a very large law roster, and you don't get to be a part of decisions, and you don't get a seat at that table, and policies are handed to you to fulfill and deliver, and you don't ever get to ask why. And so when I had this opportunity to come to RealLink and have a seat at that table and to forge the way and build the culture for the team that was coming in behind us, it was very important to me to make sure everyone has a voice and everyone understands what we're doing so that we are on mission. We have a lot of young professionals that work for us, and we have some seasoned professionals as well, and everyone's voice is important no matter what. And so transparency plays into that, in that I will explain a decision that I'm making to someone that works on my team. They'll come to me and ask for a reason, and I usually start to explain why my wheels are spinning the way that they are, because I want them to understand how we operate as a company, how I operate as a leader, and so they can start to be mentored and groomed into that and grow into leadership as well. So it's really just about our culture as a company, and also my fulfillment of making sure I'm bringing up a level of leaders under me.
I think that's really beautiful. It reminds me a lot of, like, what's coming to my mind is Brene Brown and her vulnerability. And like, if you come from a traditional, corporate setting into this, hey, let's be transparent, there's probably this like, are you sure? Like, can
Is
I
this
really
a trick to get
that?
to know me? Is this a catch trick or something?
Yeah.
Right? People start thinking that because they're not used to that environment.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim, I know you had a point.
Yeah, and I think that's really beautiful. And of course, there's three components here that you were very intentional about specifying: the client, the user, and ourselves. Would you like to go into that in a bit more depth?
Yeah, for sure. So we can start at the top with the client. And so when I say the client, I mean the corporate stakeholder. And so I think anybody who is in a tech company, you're working with a corporate stakeholder, and they're the buying decision, they're the strategic leader of why they're rolling your solution out. And so, there are a lot of times where we're trying to sell and they're like, yeah, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you. And we want to lead in that partnership, in that conversation, and be real and be transparent with them so that it builds that relationship. And so when we come to the table and we're, trying to expand or renew a contract, that we hopefully will get that in return, which is, hey, like the budget's not there, we can't expand right now, but we're going to stick with what we have. Or we have all these projects coming, they are now delayed, and they can lay that timeline out with us. And so we just really believe in pouring into that relationship to make sure that we can have those real conversations.
Now, how do you guys go about creating this space inside the organization? And what I mean by space is you do actually have to create a safe space for people to want to be transparent, because historically that has not been the norm in many companies, especially in corporate life, right? Those who have chosen to be transparent, sometimes it's been used against them. So people are very cautious. And for me, it really comes down to a matter of trust. You can't have transparency without trust, and you can't have trust without transparency. So how do you go about creating the space inside the organization so that that can flourish into taking care of the customers as well? What are you guys practicing to enable that?
Yeah, I love this question. It starts with hiring. I just went through a big round of hiring myself, and I brought 2 new team members onto the client success team, which is where I serve. And we were just like, all cards on the table. This is our team. This is the personality. This is how we operate. This is what we do. And you don't have to be a perfect fit into that. That's not what we need. We don't need another version of this person. We have that person, but we want you to understand what you could potentially be walking into. And they signed up for that. And so I think it starts in the interviewing process to say, we have team meetings every Monday morning, and I'm going to ask you, where are you at personally and where are you at professionally? If you're feeling like crap after the weekend personally, I'm not going to expect you to be bubbles and sunshine on Monday morning. And I'm not going to give that to you either, because it's not going to start your week off. You're not going to feel good. I'm going to give you a little space. And then when you're ready to bring your best self, then we'll move forward and, having that fun environment. And so it starts in the interviewing. It starts in those team meetings too, of where are you at? Okay, great. We're going to work alongside you with wherever that is. And it continues from the leadership aspect. I will ask silly questions or dumb, uneducated questions in front of people that I should know the answer to, so that other people can see it's okay to ask questions. I had to ask something very basic in front of our investor board, and they're like, Rachel, it's this answer. And I was like, okay, thank you. But I want to show that it's okay, ask those questions. So it starts with the interviewing and it continues all the way through leadership.
Amazing. What did you say? What do you call it? Not bubbles and what was the saying you used?
Bubbles and sunshine, maybe.
Bubbles and sunshine. I've used peaches and cream, but I really like bubbles and sunshine. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Look, this is amazing, right? To create an environment where you're leading and showing by example that it's okay to ask. I call them questions for understanding. Sometimes they're literally like questions you know the answer to already, but you're creating a channel for others to open up. How do you deal with those circumstances that are difficult, right? There's certain times where sharing certain news is difficult, and we go into damage control mode. It's almost a default way of thinking. How do I protect everyone from this bad news? Maybe the internal mother or father kicks in trying to protect the kids, but there's a certain level of disrespect in that too, because these are not kids, they're peers. So how do you guys deal with when those difficult situations come up where it's not so easy to be transparent? What are some of the tools you guys have used that work? And what are some of the things you've learned that don't work, perhaps?
Yeah, it's never fun, right? Those are the nights that you don't sleep so hot the night before. And there's a lot of sweaty hands before those conversations are had. We've made mistakes. We have not been perfect by any means. But our first step is always, how are they going to hear the message? And what are all the questions that are going to immediately come up? So we took on a growth equity partner last year, and that can be scary. It was an incredibly exciting time for our company. It was something to be significantly celebrated for everyone, but we knew that they might not interpret it that way. And so we, prepared and had an FAQ doc ready to go. Do I still have a job? 100% yes. Your job is not going away. Do I still get unlimited PTO? Yes, you still get unlimited PTO. And so just a little bit of forethought and just stopping and thinking, what is their experience going to be and where are they at in their career and what is the lens that they're going to hear this message from, and trying to prepare for that. And if it doesn't go well, because it might not, and it might not fall the way you think it's going to, it just goes back to, let's have a conversation. And I've admitted that I'm wrong. Our CEO has admitted that he's been wrong in situations, and you just own it. And that's what I ask of my team too, in their daily interactions that are not dramatic and not big like that, is if you spell somebody's name wrong, own it. Email them back and say, I'm really sorry, Tulio, I got that wrong. I won't do it again. I got your name this time. So that's our approach.
Nice. Good, Carlos.
Rachel, I got something here. We're discussing. Yes. And I'm not on mute, Tulio. So please let me in. Okay.
I think there's a delay there.
I think he's delayed. Go ahead.
Is there a delay, folks?
Maybe. Just keep going. You're good.
Is there a delay? Okay. Bear with me. So, Rachel, we're discussing transparency here, and I'm all for transparency. We as a team here internally are all for transparency. We foster it, we promote it. However, this is, I don't know how to phrase this, so please bear with me, but you were discussing real estate, a real estate company. And how would you say that transparency can sometimes, in the minds of a group of people, professionals out there, might even kind of get in the way of this perception that we're all going through a rough time in the world and we need to do whatever needs to be done in order to keep business flowing. And that might kind of hinder the strength of what transparency is about in the minds of some people. Fortunately, not a lot of people. What would you say to these people who are not being so transparent because they feel, because of there might be their upbringing, or there might be something on their education or whatever, they feel that they cannot be 100% transparent because there's a fear of losing business or their market segment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell them so that it can easily tackle this problem and maybe just learn how to become more transparent?
Mm-hmm.
So please, if you can just enlighten us with that, with your opinion on that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah. There are people who are struggling right now because life at home is hard and they've got 3 kids in front of their monitor and they're trying to keep a straight face and keep their job. They might be the breadwinner. Maybe their partner doesn't have a job. There are people who still have a job and all the other work has been dumped on them because their team has been stripped away and they're just trying to hold it all together. Business has been hard. I hear that. And people are like, I'm just going to power through one more day. I can keep it. Like, I'm going to keep this space on until I can get relief or until they promise me that resource and deliver it. And I get that. I'm like that too. I'm like, I'm just going to work harder. I'm going to work harder tomorrow. I've got this. I can handle all of it. So that's what we do as leaders, right? And I would say that try with something small, with something that isn't a big risk, and try with, like, I dropped the ball on getting that email to you because I hadn't eaten lunch and I needed to eat because I was hangry. You're not going to get fired for that. That's not going to your boss and telling them that you can't perform in your role and you're suffering and you're hurting the company. But you can try with little things and see how that goes. At the end of the day, the way that we operate with transparency isn't the right flavor for everybody. And that's kind of the beauty of corporate structures, right? Is you work into teams that make sense for you. And that's why we get to celebrate each other's differences. So I'm not saying that you should walk in to work tomorrow and be like, I'm struggling, I'm failing, my home life is a wreck, and I can't do my job. Because your boss wants to hear the solution. I'm struggling, and here's my plan. Can you help? Is this on par with what the company's goals are? So that's how I would recommend that to somebody, is try something inconsequential. If that gets received well, then that helps you build that trust in your leadership and your support to get you moving in the right direction.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's a bit of a shame that structure even exists, don't you guys think? I mean, we're a little spoiled. Our culture is such where someone can actually come in and say, guys, I'm struggling, this is what's happening. And the answer is more like, okay, how can we help you? Not immediately start thinking about, maybe I should get rid of this person because they're not a team player or they're not pulling their weight, which kind of happens in those kind of more command and control types of work structures. We don't have that. We don't operate that way, which is amazing. So that allows for more transparency, even because we just don't have a boss to respond to. We're each other's boss, right? So in a more traditional structure, that is a wonderful advice, wonderful tip. But do you see perhaps an evolution that could happen where eventually, even the more traditional structures start to adapt a model that's a bit more about sharing authority and allowing for that transparency, true transparency, and not worrying about repercussions? Is that something the newer generation is embracing? I'm trying to see if there's light at the end of the tunnel where this will change, because in the newer generation is like, we're not having it that way. What are you seeing as a startup? You're exposed to a lot more of that than an established company. Are you seeing a trend towards moving away from the fear of actually being completely transparent and saying, I'm struggling right now, help me out? What are you seeing? Thoughts?
Yeah, I have always been an advocate for, I remember reading a book, it was Results Only Work Environment several years ago. And it was the whole mentality of, I'm going to get my job done. And if that means that I took care of my clients and they have all of my deliverables are delivered, my metrics are met, I'm going to go catch a movie at 2 p.m. And that was an extremely radical thought, 5 years ago. And if we're going to look at the bright side of 2020, I hope that the bright side that we come out of is employers and the big traditional structures that we're talking about are seeing that employees can be trusted. They can work from anywhere, anytime. They can juggle things. And I mean, I don't want to get into the whole mom is taking on more. That's like a whole separate topic for a separate day. But for those who are thriving, I hope those employers can see that, and that this new norm that we're moving into can keep those doors open and keep this conversation going when we do arrive back at whatever 2022 is going to look like. So that's kind of one side of it. The other side of it is what I'm seeing from my younger team members is they love the transparency. And, they've felt then like they can come sit down and say, I want to go do this with my life. And can you make recommendations to help me get there? And that's what I've always told them too, is like, I know you're not going to work for me forever. Like, I want you to, that's why I hired you. But ultimately, like, I want to know what your life goals are because I want to help you meet that. And if you, come in and quit on me someday because you're going to go sell pina coladas on the beach and you never told me you wanted to do that, I'm devastated because I wasn't able to help get you to that goal. So I am really having a lot of success with our younger team members that are very open and they want to have that conversation. What I'm seeing from them the most is that they need constant feedback. And I think that's too. They want to know continually, did I do okay? Is this what you wanted? And so it's just building that confidence into them. And again, I think shifting some of those structures away from like performance reviews and some of the more standard things. So
we actually have in our onboarding here at Ancora, we have a talk that's called The Art of Feedback. So it's a very useful skill, professionally, and a life skill as well. I am interested in talking about RealLink. I find it really great that the company culture is focused on transparency, and yet what you're doing with your clients is allowing them to be transparent, right? By really showcasing and showing off what a property is like, isn't like. Is that something that you how do you go about encouraging transparency with your clients and making sure that the product and the service that you're offering is not only the real deal for them, but for the real deal for the people who would be potentially doing business with them?
Yes, I love this. And it's our product is exactly what has fed into forming our culture, being real and being transparent. Everybody has shopped for real estate if you're over 18 years old, whether it's an apartment or a home. And we've all had that experience where we see something online and it looks great because they've got the beauty shots up there. And back in the day, there would be photoshopped green grass and blue skies with clouds. And you show up and pull up to the curb and you're like, this is not it. And so there's that need there for the consumer to be able to quickly and efficiently shortlist what they're interested in and then make that decision. So that's, one niche of it. The other is the transient resident who's moving from coast to coast or who works a different shift than what the leasing team's availability is, and they need to be able to see real estate. So the leasing teams need on site to be able to communicate more effectively and more efficiently with their consumer. And also now with COVID has really just created this awesome opportunity for them to be able to deliver real video in real time when they need it. Everybody wants to know, I want to see my specific apartment home. That's great. Your model's beautiful, but that's not my style. And I want to envision myself in this space. And so the industry is really opening up and embracing real and showing real units with the real views. So it's been an incredible journey to be there with them.
Rachel, we're approaching the final segment of today's conversation. And I don't want to end it without asking you a specific focusing a little bit on RealLink, okay? And I'm looking at the platform, and I think it makes a lot of sense because a lot of people who want to either assess their options, real estate, or get into the real estate space, it makes sense because it's virtual. So I mean, visually, it's amazing. But the question that I have is, because this is, I am assuming that this has, how can I say this, grown big time over the last year for obvious reasons. We cannot all go around home shopping or whatever. So this is the way to go, like right now. So what sort of technical challenges have you experienced in creating Relink or running Relink, or maybe other types of challenges like engineering or market segment? You know, what sort of challenges have you faced over the last year that made Relink be what it is now?
Yeah, I would say we had a live streaming provider who wasn't meeting our needs when the demand on our platform just exploded last year. And so that was, you know, a moment in time where we had users who weren't really happy with the live streaming part of our product. And so we were able to pivot and we switched providers. We looked at all of them that are available, and we were able to do that transition. It was a big development cost for us, and it slowed down innovation. But ultimately, we knew we had to get our platform stable. So we made that switch in third quarter and did that. So that's kind of one piece of the product. With that switch also opened up more features that were available in our live streaming that helped us to differentiate a little bit more from the free alternatives that are out there that teams could be using. So that was probably the biggest one that we faced last year. And, you know, it goes out and it's got a couple bugs, but we fixed them and we moved on. And I think every tech person that sits in the seat will tell you that they did that. So the other piece
is it basically based on live streaming? Isn't there any, let's say, AI or virtual reality component to it, or additions or augmented reality, or is it just live streaming?
So we have two ways. We can do pre-recorded videos. So if you want to send a video link to someone, they can watch it on their own time, watch it over and over again. That's one option that they have. And then the other is the live streaming component. We can do live streaming where you're physically walking through the property, or we can do live streaming and play video for you in real time and have a dialogue about a video. So a few different options.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. That's okay. Guys, back to
Rachel, you. We're coming up on time. I'd love to hear your feedback. With significant growth comes the challenge of scaling and keeping up, right? So what were some of the opportunities that you uncovered in scaling the business besides the improving the live streaming technology? Were there anything else that you discovered that you guys needed to kind of step up and prepare for? And if you could highlight any words of wisdom on how to effectively do that when you're, you know, throwing a big curve for growth, which is a good thing, but it's always a challenge, right? So how did you guys handle that? Was there something in particular that really got you through it? That any principles you've applied, anything you'd like to share for those who might be trying to still figure out how to scale their growth would be great.
Yeah, we pre-COVID were a team of 6, and we are now a team of 31 as of today. And so that much growth just in 8 months was insane. The analogy that I put around 2020 for Relink as a business is 2020 was an incredible party. And we've now woken up the next morning and we're trying to plan for the next big party. So like these things worked, but now we need to scale, and what are we going to do? And so just they're the basic business level functions, IT solutions, HR systems, payroll, things like payroll is fine. I've been paid the whole time I've been here. But some of that basic business stuff. The one tip that if anybody has not taken anything else from this time today, when I was a team of 6, I had a personal relationship with all of my users. I knew that they were training for marathons. I knew who their favorite band was. I knew what their usage was. When you explode and you don't have that anymore, and then you don't have a product in place to help you manage that, you get out of control really quickly. And then you grow, and then investors come knocking and they want to know your usage, and you're sitting there holding your hands without answers. So I would, number one, recommend get a client success tool in place before you think you need it, before you think you can afford it, and make the investment and get that there so that it's pulling your CRM data from Salesforce or your client data and your usage data, and you can take actionable insights and be in front of it before you explode. It will save you so much headache, and it will make you the superstar that you are on paper to your investors. So
awesome. So don't respond to the growth, anticipate it, get ahead of it.
yeah.
It's been great to have you, Rachel, as our guest. We'll have to keep tabs on you guys, see how you're coming along, maybe have you back a little bit later, tell us some use cases. Maybe you guys continue to evolve. Who knows? Augmented reality could be an interesting thing as well. We had a guess about that this morning. Thanks for joining us. We've got one more show this week, right, Carlos?
One more
Tomorrow,
show indeed.
what do we got coming up?
Exactly. So tomorrow we're going to be speaking with Miguel Fernandez from CapChase, sales intelligence tool. That's what CapChase is about. And we're going to be speaking with him at 12 noon right here on DojoLIVE. And of course, we have on Monday the recap show in which we recap in 10 minutes all of the conversations we had this week. So hey, Tulio, we're going to be recapping 4 shows. Wow. In 10 minutes.
In 10 minutes.
I look forward to that. So that's
Rachel,
what we have.
that in itself is a challenge for the 3 of us to do that in 10 minutes. But
Yeah,
we like
talk.
the challenge. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Come back tomorrow at noon Pacific for another show. Until then, stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.